Welcome to Danny's Diary. We're here in person this time around for a Cheltenham Festival preview, and this lad's already wanting to get involved with us by the looks of it. Dan, we're down in your mum's yard here, Mags' yard. Plenty going on, and a live contender that might be coming from this yard as well.
Yes, Mags had a great year this year and blazed away. He's looking in over our shoulders. So, yeah, plenty of action. And, yeah, we've had a good morning this morning, seen plenty of horses and hopefully a few outside chances at the Cheltenham Festival.
Excellent. The Tote money back second, third and fourth as a free bet up to £10 on the Supreme, and money back second in every race thereafter. So we'll get the guys' picks. We've got James Robinson, our dark horses tipster as well. So hopefully some big shouts to come in the next 20 minutes, half an hour or so. We'll go through the races. We'll start with the Supreme, the big race of the first day, the famous Raw. Danny, how do you see all this playing up? There's been plenty of contenders, All Park Star, Talk the Talk, El Kairos. I suppose, what is Willie's main contender in this to start with?
Willie's main contender in the race, I suppose it's a it's a toss-up between King Rasco Grey, who ran a fine race at the DRF, and Sober was very impressive in Punchestown. To me, I think King Rasco Grey could be the one to improve. You know, he maybe had a little less experience going in there to the Dublin Racing Festival, and if he gets on top there, I think he could be the main hope for Willie in the Supreme Novice.
What's your thoughts on El Kairos? He seems to be the main Irish talking horse in this race. Going to go to Cheltenham off just winning a maiden, that's probably not ideal, is it?
Yes, he probably would have won quite well in Leopardstown at Christmas. Very unfortunate that he seemed to stumble after the hurdle that day. It wasn't a jumping error, it was just a matter of him stumbling at the back of it. Went down to Thurles to win after that, and he made a mistake at the last there, but I think he'll learn from that. I'd say it'll be some expert on race IQ data, but I'd struggle to see a horse that's faster than him, you know, in any of their maidens through the year this year. And I think that while the strength and depth of the form, you wouldn't know how much to read into it from Thurles because we went so steady in that race, but the speed he came down the straight at, that's something very taken. He's open to any amount of potential, and I can only see a truly run race like the Supreme bringing out more in him.
And how do you think All Park Star, Nicky Henderson's horse, who's favourite for the race, as we sat here today talking about it anyway, how do you think he lines up against them? From a British point of view, we really fancy him, but from an Irish point of view, I suppose you want to try and get him beat.
Yes, Nicky Henderson very good at winning a Supreme Novice, and this fella, I suppose, definitely does set the standard from the other side of the sea. He was very good winning at Haydock last time, a good performance in Cheltenham before that, and he definitely seems to be ticking all the right boxes. I wonder, can Joseph O'Brien's horse beat him, Talk to Talk? I think his performance in Leopardstown, where he came from off the pace, and what he did in Leopardstown, I think he's open to plenty more improvement. The bare line of the form doesn't tell the full story from Leopardstown, and for me, at the prices and seeing what they've done, I think Talk to Talk is the one that I would fancy most to win the race.
Excellent. What did JJ say after that? Because we were there at Leopardstown and he just sort of got there, and most of the crowd didn't think he'd actually won. How did he sort of feed back in the weighing room?
Yeah, JJ seemed happy afterwards, and you know, you'd watch the race and you'd think they really wanted to teach the horse how to race there on the day, and you know, he learned and he listened as the race developed, and from the position he ended up in, maybe at the second last hurdle, I thought it was very good performance that he got there to win.
Excellent. And James, I know you're quite keen on El Kairos as the Supreme winner.
Yeah, I thought he ran a cracker in bumper last year, finished fifth. He's been really good over hurdles. Again, he was unlucky to fall, and then was impressive last time. I know he made a mistake at the last, but if he can eradicate them jumping errors, I think he could take a lot of beating.
Excellent stuff. We'll move on to the Turners then, the other novice hurdle. Now, Mighty Park, since Willie Mullins did a media day, I think about 2 weeks ago, has now gone into favourite for this race. He talked him up as the next for him. We touched on it in your diary, I think, last week, Danny, and you still think he's got a lot to prove to be the next for him, but there's clearly good vibes in the camp.
Definitely so, you know. A wide margin winner of his Fairy House maiden that screams unbelievable potential, but I'm sure there's plenty of horses in this field that could have gone out and, done something like that in a similar type of race. So it's what they do when they find the next level. A vote of confidence from Willie Mullins, that speaks volumes. And, he's really going to have to step up to that level. And if Willie thinks he can, no better man to judge it. But for me, I think looking through the race, some of the other ones here at slightly bigger prices. I know No Drama Descend is a deserving favourite. He's been very good and passed every test so far. But I'm going to go back and look at the Nace Grade 1, where I'll sort that for Declan Queally beat Sortudo. And I think Sortudo could be a horse that'll find a little bit of improvement from Nace. I won on him in Cork earlier in the year, and if he finds that natural improvement from there, I think he's a good each way bet in what could possibly be an open race still. No Drama Descend is solid, but doesn't look a standout. Willie has had all the chat about Mighty Park, but I'll sort that. Could be a contender as well. And when there's so many you can give a chance to winning, I think a selection like Sortudo at 16-1 is a great each way bet, and I can see him having a chance to win.
Do you think you'll get the ride on him there?
Well, Patrick rode him the last day, so I'm sure he'll be campaigning for the ride on him again. But whoever rides him, they're in for a good spin around.
Excellent. What do you think about Ballyfad in that race? Obviously, you've mentioned Tote there. He was only just touched off by him at the DRF. He's in this one, and he's obviously in the Supreme as well. Just a line on him.
Yes, he was very good in Leopardstown at Christmas when he beat leader Dallier, who could be an outsider's chance in the Supreme Novice after backing up that form, winning quite impressively in Punchestown after it. So, yeah, Ballyfad is definitely a contender. I think the chat, from what I've heard at the moment, is he's likely to step up in distance following the DRF. But, again, as we're saying, it's very hard to pick out standouts in this. They've all, done their bit so far, and you're trying to see which one is going to be poking their head in front come Cheltenham, and that's just very open at the moment, and that's why I'm sticking with Sortudo at the price.
Okay, so a dark horse from Danny and James. I know you like one of the British contenders, Acts of Innocence, who's trained by Nicky Henderson. He's done plenty right this season. Yeah,
he seemed to relish a step up in trip in the Sydney Banks, and he looks a really nice prospect. And I think again he could. It's a couple of furlongs further in this. I think he'd have a big chance.
And he's sort of a double figure price at the minute as well, isn't he?
Yeah. If he stays at that price, I think it could be a great each way place, each way playing a race, and with money back second as well. It could be it looks a good bet.
Excellent, yeah. And with that money back second in place, two nice shouts there from Danny and James. We'll move on to the Albert Bartlett now. Dr. Steinberg looked to be one of the most impressive winners of the DRF. Danny sort of pulled Paul's arms out all the way around, but then ended up going away from him. So that was really impressive. And can he do that round Cheltenham? Can he be that keen?
He'd want to be very good to be that keen and win in Cheltenham, but I don't think he will. It was a matter of circumstance. I thought Paul was very good on him in Leopardstown. He controlled the race. Plenty tried to take him on and do this and do that. And, I'd ridden him in Navan, and he was actually quite lazy in Navan. So, in a different type of race, probably more truly run race, the Albert Bartlett, they tend to go out there and go a right gallop in the first mile or so. I think he'll have no bother settling there. And the way he hit the line in Leopardstown following being so keen, I thought that was the most impressive part of the performance. He's a proper staying type, and you have to have him at the top of your list in what he's done so far. That Leopardstown performance for me really boosted him. I hoped he had the potential to do that in Leopardstown, and he stepped up every bit as much. And if he can find any natural improvement from there, he'll take a bit of beating in the Albert Bartlett.
Excellent. James, we went to Paul Nolan to do a stable tour early in the year that people can obviously have a watch on our YouTube channel. The Devil You Know was one we chatted plenty about, and after that win in Doncaster recently, you really like him for this race.
Yeah, he was a winning dark horse selection that day, and he went off a big price, really. He was missed in the market, surprisingly. He was given a great ride, dropped out the back, and he crept into race beautifully, and I think he could win a big race in this. It'd be a nice price, hopefully an each way price. I think he could go well.
And Paul Nolan obviously has a decent record of taking horses to Cheltenham, so that won't be putting anybody off.
Yeah, he had a win last year, and yeah, he knows how to train him at Cheltenham, so yeah, they have a chance.
Excellent stuff. Triumph Hurdle we'll touch on next. Now, this has been blown wide open in sort of the last few days with Danny Mullins being ruled out of the race, which is a real shame because you rode him at Christmas, I think, and then he went on to win him impressively, improved again at the DRF, so he's a big miss in this now.
He is, and you know, Narciso Haas was probably the banker of the meeting for plenty of people, so very disappointing that he's going to miss the race. But I think Connections could have a decent chance of winning it still with Proactive. He was very good in Fairy House, where he beat Macho Man, another horse of Willie Mullins's. So, you know, that form, it probably might not have been at Narciso Haas's level, but it looks to be what should be a decent standard to have a chance of winning the race. You know, this year there's not going to be any 100-to-1 outsiders coming in. The rule has changed from last year's winner, so hopefully if he runs to that level of form again, Proactive could be the one that'll take the beating.
Excellent. Who is this lad that we've got next to us here? He or she is it that's ready to go?
Eternal Reward, yeah. He wants to be in on the festival preview. He's not going to Cheltenham this year, but maybe next year.
Yeah, he wants to book a ticket anyway. James, Triumph Hurdle, you've got, again, we're getting a bit of connection here. Where you going for some of the Henderson fancied ones. Fieldgut, who's owned by the Donnellys, and they'll deserve one after Stateman and Sagino missing out going to the festival this year.
Yeah, I think if he runs in the race, he'd have a good chance. He was very impressive at Warwick when he won, and I know you think a lot of him, and I think he was about 16-1. I think he could run well at that price again. Another nice each way bet.
Excellent stuff. We'll go on to the novice chases now. So we'll start with the Arkle. This looks like one of the races of the festival, really, but potentially a match. Danny, you can give us your feelings on it. But the Lamba v Kopek the Boards, you mentioned in your diary a couple of weeks ago now that schooling race sort of thing that went on at Punchestown, where you said Kopek was electric, and there was plenty made of that later in the week. How has he been since then? I think there was another schooling session, was there, a couple of days ago?
Yeah, they all seem to be very happy with him, and you know, Kopek, he does the talking himself. You know, he was very good in the Supreme last year. He won well in Navan earlier in the year. Obviously, he hasn't had a race, but you know, plenty of schooling has gone into him, and I think he'll be going there with a live chance. But that said, Lulamba's performance in the Game Spirit in Newbury, that was a taken performance as well. That was an open grade 2 mile chase. They knew they were taking on a novice, and they properly went at him in the first mile and a half of that race. And the way Lulamba was able to come through that test, and you know, probably looked maybe in trouble 5-6 furlongs from home, and then just seemed to kick into top gear and ran out a convincing winner in the end. And the ratings of the second, third, fourth are all very strong there. So he definitely sets a good standard and probably has that little bit of an edge and experience there. Romeo Coolio, will he run in the race? I suppose it's all up in the air still. He matches form with Cargeese from Leopardstown. I thought Leopardstown is 2 mile 1 furlong for their Arkle, where Cheltenham is 1 mile 7.5 a furlong. That flipping distance could play more to Cargeese's strength if those two were to match up again. So of the Romeo Coolio matchup, I'd have Cargeese. I want Kopek the Boards to win, but Lulamba maybe has the edge on the Game Spirit run.
It sort of feels like with Alhambra, he's not what he's shown this season. It's not exactly you want to be going up against him with only having one time so far that season kind of thing. He looks battle hardened, and you know, if you're going to beat him, you're going to have to be top class. Definitely
so, and that's what an Arkle should be. But well, Chief won with just one run over fences, and you know, he went down to be one of the greats. Can Kopek go into that league? I suppose he can. Yeah, he's got the potential for it. So who knows? It's going to be an exciting race, but you do well to pin your colours to the mast at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. There's plenty of Cope de Boards fans out there anyway. Breaking news all the time about him. James, I know you like well, this will be a dark horse if we're going against them two, so who do you fancy in this one?
Well, it was a 25-1 second in the race last year, and I think the one to the top obviously will take a lot of beating, but I think Irish Panther deserves a bit of respect. Nice horse, beat Jacob's Ladder impressively, who's a nice horse, and then was only just beaten by Romeo Cully on the Grade 1 racing post Novice Chase. It was a good piece of form, and again at a big price, 25-1 second in it last year, could outrun his odds.
Excellent stuff. Another big dark horse there for James. We'll be tweeting that one out after time if it comes in. So we'll go on to the Brown Advisory. Danny, Final Demand was probably one of the biggest disappointments of the DRF. Can you still retain the faith in him after that, and what's sort of the vibe been around the yard about him?
It was very disappointing, and you wonder how can a horse bounce back from that. But you look to the past and you see Gaelic Warrior. He was very disappointing, DRF behind Fact to File as a novice, and came on to win an Arkle. So, you know, Willie Mullins can turn them around. You can forgive a horse one run, and, you know, he's been all the rage all season. I think you'd still have to stick with Final Demand. He's maybe at the price he should be now, 7-2. Had he won in Leopardstown, he'd probably be an even money, near borderline odds-on shot. And for the price you're getting, I think, and the horse he is, if he bounces back to himself, he's still going to take all the beating here.
James, I imagine you want to take on Final Demand here, and this is where you've got dark horse territory, I suppose.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit disappointing last time, so I think it's definitely worth taking on. And I actually think if he runs here, I think a 6 Mile Bridge would have a good chance. Unbeaten over fences, won the Silly Isles last time. Been really impressive, and again, he'd be a nice each way price. Dark horse in the race, could run well.
Yeah, I think Fergal O'Brien, that would make it his first festival winner, would it? I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he's been brilliant this season and deserves a lot of respect if he turns up.
Okay, we're going to have a chat about the mares now. Although people give these races a bit of stick, there's some real interesting runners in them this year. Danny, Bambino Fever was obviously brilliant in bumpers last year and got beat the first day over hurdles, but then has been brilliant ever since. Is she something of an Irish banker?
I think so. You know, can she reverse the form with Gordon's mare, Old School Outlaw? I think she will. After that, I don't think there's something there in the mare's novice. Like if Bambino ran in the Supreme Novice, I think she'd run with a lot of credit. And, you know, in here against the mares, I think she has to be one of the bankers of the festival. You know, she's been over there. She won the bumper. She beat Geldings last year. She's looked very good since getting beaten in Naas, and I think, yeah, she is the banker of the festival.
Has there been any chat about her going for the Supreme? I know at one point he did get sort of mentioned, but it seems to be that the mare's novice is now just a plan, and that'll be where Willie will decide to go in the end.
I'm sure Willie will run it through his head plenty more about where to go with her, but what it all comes down to for Willie is where can they win, and I would say the mare's novice is a most likely place of her winning, so I would be surprised if she didn't run there.
Excellent. So something of the Irish banker there, James. Can you take on the Irish banker with something?
No, I think she's the banker. Is the banker of the festival. I don't think she'll get beat, to be honest. I just think she'll win.
Just got covered in all sorts there. He's getting involved as well now. We'll go on to the mare's hurdle then, because this is interesting. I suppose with Lossiemouth getting beat by Brighter Days Ahead at the DRF, she now looks to have come back into the fold for this rather than going down the champion hurdle route. Is that your thinking of it, Danny, as well?
I wouldn't be guaranteeing that Lossiemouth won't go for the champion hurdle as of yet. It's probably most likely that she runs in the mares. She won it last year. She stays that distance. With her record in Cheltenham, did she win the Triumph? She's won the mare's hurdle. Brighter Days Ahead was the banker in the mare's novice, and a big hope in the champion hurdle, and got beat both times. So with that Cheltenham form, I think she can reverse it with Brighter Days Ahead were they to meet here. She's confirmed form she can confirm form with Woodhoo from Aintree last year. I think, yeah, she'd take all the beating in the mare's race, but you're going back to the champion hurdle. You know, can it still cut up? Constitution Hill was very good. on the flat recently, and will he run, won't he run? You know, that could chop up more. I think Lossiemouth can win the mare's race, but she also could have a chance of winning the champion hurdle. So I wouldn't be saying it's a foregone conclusion that she's going to run in the mare's race. I think she still has a hope of winning a champion hurdle. So that decision, I think, won't be made until late.
Interesting. So if she didn't go to the mare's hurdle, how do you think that... Does that, well, obviously improves Woodoo's chance of winning this, I suppose. You'd put her next best in this field, would you?
You'd think so. You know, she's been very good. She won nicely in Ascot and, you know, ran Lossiemouth quite close in Aintree last year. And, you know, she looks to be, you know, the best mare around, but for Lossiemouth. So, yeah, they've said she will go for the race. So she's probably a likely winner if Lossiemouth doesn't turn up. But this race is going to change complexion for me. I'd say, we're 2 weeks out now. I think, yeah, it's going to change plenty in the last coming days before final declarations. Interesting.
We'll keep our eye on it. James, a member of the Paul Nolan fan club, we've got another shout from that yard here.
Yeah, Feet for Dancer, fourth in the attempts last year, so she got festival form. And she's been in great form this year, won at Doncaster last time in a grade 2. Obviously Lossiemouth and Woodoo will take a lot of beating, but again, he's money back second, so she could finish second or even like to finish in the frame. I think she's a great each way play. Really consistent mare, tough mare, and I think she'll run a good race.
Excellent. We've also got an estimated £1 million in the place for every day as well, so it's the kind of pick that you could be throwing in there at a price. You got anything to add there?
I think one more for an each way bet in the mare's race. If Jade Grugy was to go back and run over hurdles, I know she's been over fences this season, but there's no mare's novice chase at the Cheltenham Festival. There could still be a possibility of her running the race. She was second to Lossiemouth last year.
Excellent. We'll go on to the mare's chase now. Another few names to throw at Danny here. I'll start, Danny, with Spindleberry, because we've not heard much about her since the Irish Gold Cup. I know you were looking forward to that day. It probably was just a bit too good of a race. Was it a bit too much for her too soon, maybe?
She never turned up, you know. She just didn't operate at all, and I think you'd have to draw a line through that. And as we spoke about, you know, the likes of Final Demand, horses can have an off day, and you know she just didn't seem to manage it. It was her first run over 3 miles, and she maybe softer ground than she'd encountered before. So yeah, there's plenty of maybes and this and that why, but I just don't think she was on her A game. And if she brings it back to what she's shown previous to that, she still has a big chance of winning the mare's chase. I suppose the main danger is coming from Dino Blue, who won nicely in Naas, but I wonder, would Spindleberry have the edge at this distance? Dino Blue is maybe more of a 2-miler, where Spindleberry at 2.5 around the new course, a good bit of stamina, might flip me towards Spindleberry of the match.
Excellent. And interesting to hear about after that Gold Cup run. James, panic attack has sort of taken hold before her in the UK this season. She may be a handicapper having to step up a bit now, but she's shown plenty of improvement this season. Yeah,
she's been outstanding. Won the Paddy Power over course of distance, and then won the Coral Gold Cup, and absolutely bolted up at Newbury last time in a listed race. And I've got Willie Mullins to beat, which will be tricky, but she's been outstanding. She's mixed it in them big handicaps, and she's surely going to be there again at the business end.
So just a reminder on the offers for the Tote throughout Cheltenham Festival. We've got money back second, third and fourth in the first race of the meeting. That's the Supreme. With money back second in every race across the whole card from then. And we've also got an estimated £1 million in the place for every day. So please gamble responsibly, and obviously 18 plus to do that. But enjoy, and there's some great offers to be had with the Tote. We're going to go into the big races now, and we'll start with the Champion Hurdle. We're coming at a good time here because we've just seen Constitution Hill run on the flat a few days ago. So I'm going to get the verdict from Danny and James. If he was your horse, would you be going back to the Champion Hurdle now?
I would. You know, he's a previous Champion Hurdle winner. He's shown that he's in great nick in Subtle on the flat, and you know, if they're happy with school and sessions at home, for me, yeah, I would be having a go at the race. He has a genuine chance of winning it, and yeah, look to be as good as ever the other evening when we seen him running in the 1.5 mile maiden. So yeah, I would have a go with Constitution Hill. You know, obviously he has his question marks there with his jumping and bits and bobs, but if he turns up on his A game, he'd be hard to beat, innit?
How is he as a betting proposition for you, James? He's obviously difficult to assess, having not really done much over hurdles for the last year or so, but that flat is the race on the flat the other day is hard not to be impressed by, isn't it?
Yeah, he was outstanding, wasn't he? And I know obviously his jumping's the issue, but the way he won the other day, you would be tempted if you're running a race. He's in great heart and he's a quality horse, and yeah.
Danny, we mentioned brighter days ahead that before there. You think, does she have a chance in this if Lossiemouth doesn't go to it, or how do you see the picture for her chances?
Yeah, she was quite good in Leopardstown the last day. You know, she was probably open to that improvement from the rematch from Christmas time with Lossiemouth, and you know, you'd have to give her a good chance of winning it. But I'd be thinking Lossiemouth, if she runs, would be able to reverse the form. Does Lossiemouth run? You're looking at reasons why she wouldn't. Constitution Hill is not guaranteed to run, and the New Lion got the job done in Leopardstown or in Cheltenham the last day in the international hurdle, but had fallen before that in Newcastle. Didn't look, you know, like a real champion hurdler in Newcastle. Done a little bit of running around down the back straight and then fell at the second last. So, you know, he's a very good horse, but hasn't proved he's a real champion hurdler just yet, the New Lion. Deserving favourite, I would say, in circumstances, but he's not the finished article just yet. And for all of those reasons, I still think Lossiemouth has a chance of winning the champion hurdle.
Interesting. You said that last year as well. I remember being confident right till the final hour that she'll go for the champion hurdle. Same again.
I think, you know, it'll be as usual. Willie and Rich will be having those conversations down to the last minute, and you know, it's competitive in the mares race as well this year. She'd likely win it, but you know, a champion hurdle is a champion hurdle, and yeah, I think there's a good chance she could run it.
One more from Willie's yard, Poneros, who obviously won the Triumph Hurdle last year at a mega price. He sort of ran all right the other day at the DRF and probably comes into this as a lively outsider, I'd say.
He does, you know, he won as you say, he won the Triumph last year, went and ran a solid race. He was only a couple of lengths behind Lamba in Punchestown, and, you know, a belated start to his season, but ran well, not too far behind the pair of the mares in Leopardstown, and he was the one in the Leopardstown race that was probably open to a lot of improvement, both for experience and for fitness. So, you know, it puts him in there as a double figures, solid each way betting the race. But, you know, he's going to have to find a little bit more to think he can overturn some of the hot shots. But it can be done. There have been, you know, 5-year-olds that have done it in the past. Punjabi was one, Catch It another. They're the recent ones I can think of, but you know, he's not out of the race, but he still probably needs to find all the potential improvement that was there from Leopardstown to be in with a genuine chance.
James, I suppose with the openness of this, as Danny's talking us through them there, this is a race to have a bet in, isn't it? And one where you can sort of, you know, the money back seconds and stuff are going to come into play here. Yeah,
definitely. And we're in a race where there's a lot of question marks over plenty of horses in the race. I think Golden Ace, she won the race last year. She's a really tough, honest, reliable mare. She won the fight in 5th. She ran one in a Christmas hurdle behind Sergino. She's going to be bang there again. I know if the ones at the top of the market perform, she might not win, but she's a good money back second selection, and I think she'll win a big race again.
Yeah, you always feel like you want to get a beat, and then somehow she still runs a good race. She doesn't really let you down, does she?
She'll be bang there again. Coming to the last, she'll be there, and if she's good enough, she might get her head in front again.
Excellent stuff. It's going to be a brilliant race on that first day. We're going to move on now to the Champion Chase, and Margeboro's probably who many people are looking forward to seeing after that DRF performance. He was absolutely top class there, Danny. The main question mark will be over his jumping. He could do it in Leopardstown. Can he do it at Cheltenham, where he didn't exactly put in the best round of jumping last year?
I think he can. What changed and why did he jump well? The cheek pieces on and probably more aggressive tactics. He concentrated a lot better, and You know, last year he was an exuberant novice that was probably always doing a fraction too much. If you go back to galloping the Champs novice days, the same could be said about him. And he was always kind of a bit excitable. And as he progressed and got older, he relaxed and really became a real proper 3 mile chaser. And I think this fella can develop into the champion chaser he's always had the potential to do. You know, that bit of experience on his side, the few little changes that brought out that Dublin Festival performance. I think if that follows through and he jumps like that again, I see him as the champion chase winner. You know, last year's winner, Marine National, might have been in the balance down to the last with the Bromhead's horse tipping up at the last, but you know, Marine National is very solid and got the job done on the day. He wasn't going to have liked the ground in Leopardstown last day, and I think he'll find improvement from that. But is it going to be enough improvement to beat Margeborough? I don't think so.
What's the latest on Ilete Tomps? He was obviously a bit disappointing the last day, but you've had, well, many a good day on him, and at one point he was looking like he would be the favourite for this race, and that just seems to have dropped off a little bit in the last few weeks.
A little bit, you know, he took a tired fall in Ascot at the second last, and he seems, all the chat is that he's back as good as ever. So, you know, Cheltenham hasn't been where he's been at his best, and I think that was down to ground being on the slow side. I was very surprised with the performance he put in the Tingle Creek on soft to heavy ground that day. That was a real feather in his cap that he was able to do it. But for me, the reason he didn't show up in Ascot was the ground again. Maybe just 2 races together on that type of ground, he wasn't able to back it up. If we have what's looking like a slightly better forecast now for Cheltenham and the ground dries out a fraction, he really comes back into the mix. You know, he can mix it with any of these on his A day, and yeah, he's going to, if the ground dries out, I think he'd be going there with a big chance again. Margeborough is setting the standard, but I think you'd be foolish to rule him out.
Question for you, did they work together at home at any point, Margeborough and Ilete Tomps?
I don't think so. Generally, Willie wouldn't work, horses like that. You know, if they get into a battle in Loughorns, they might end up doing too much at home. So, no, I don't think they'd meet each other much on the gallop. Okay,
no worries. James, anything for you in this? It looks like the ones at the top of the market are the right ones, but anything you fancy out on the outside front or dark horse front? Yeah,
well, actually, there's only been 3 winning favourites in the last 10 years of the race, so it is a race to find a bit of value in. And I think Wilixios could be that value play. He was winning a cracker in a race last year, fell at the last when he upsides Marine National. He's previous winner of the Triumph Hurdle, so he's got a festival win in the bag already. And he comes here fresh, and he has a good record fresh, so he could be a good each-way player. That's a great shot as well. Chieveley Park got plenty of success, and like you say, if he'd have stood up at the last, he'd probably be running up the hill to try and at least make a race of it. Yeah, to be fair. So yeah, it would have been a good race to the line. Yeah. Excellent. Some good shouts there. We'll drop onto the Stayers Hurdle now. Obviously a race, Danny, you've had plenty of success in. Like Flooring Port used to be, Tote looks the solid yardstick in this, but it probably won't be as straightforward as that, I don't imagine.
Yeah, you know, I suppose honesty policy is coming in there. He'd stepped up and won Grade 1s last year, and you know, being a decent contender all the way through. You know, maybe a bit disappointing in Ascot at Christmas. Can he find the form to beat Tihufu? I don't think so. Tihufu is rock solid. He went to Christmas and won. So I think he's solid. No, I think that the rest of them have to get to his level. It was a very clever ride from Rachel Blackmore to nip him late on last year, and Tihufu for me is the one. You know, they're going to have to do it. Bob Ollinger at 11 years old, he's probably too old to be doing it. Is Impose Trois an outsider's chance after a good performance in the long walk? You know, a slightly bigger price. Interesting. I quite like Impose Trois as well. James, you picked out a few
before filming for this race, I know you want to take on Teopu in this with a couple of dark horses.
Yeah, I think Marchand 2 would have to have a big chance. 3-time course and distance winner this year. Won the Cleve Hurdle in good style and beat Impulse Trois impressively that day. Emma Lavelle's won it before with Paisley Park. He looks a very similar type, and he's been in great form this season. He'd have to be respected. And I think Cabral Matan, Skelton's have been flying. He was very good when he won at Haydock, and again he could be. If they're like nice each way price, I think they're good players in the race, especially money back second again. I think they'd be a good bet in the race, a pair of them.
Excellent stuff, a good tip there from James. Now we'll probably mash these two together because there's horses that, well, it's Willie Mullins bingo time, isn't it, in the Ryanair and the Gold Cup. We've got Factor File, Danny, and Gaelic Warrior. Are you any of the wiser on who'll go where?
I'd say, yeah, the usual story. This is going to come down to being late on, but looking at chances of horses winning the race, I think, it's most likely Factor File is going to be supplemented for the Gold Cup. After the DRF performance, I'd be very surprised if he wasn't. But I think that gives us a big chance of nominating Gaelic Warrior as a rock solid chance of winning the Ryanair. What does Willie Mullins do? He goes for the races he thinks he can win, and I think Gaelic Warrior will be hard to beat in a Ryanair. John Bond stepping up and trip, got the job done the last day. Could he do it? Possibly so. And his record around Cheltenham, not great. That's why I'm steering towards Gaelic Warrior being the rock solid one in the race.
Anything to change that thinking, James, if Gaelic Warrior does go to the Ryanair, or anything dark horse fancies in this?
I do think Gaelic Warrior or Factor File, whoever comes in, would be hard to beat, but I think Hartwood deserves a lot of respect. Second in the race last year, chased on Factor File, and again, Henry de Bromhead's he's proven winning a big race at the festival.
He always has a winner, doesn't he?
Yeah, and this is a target, and it's the only race he's in, I think, so he's definitely going to go here, and I think Hartwood will run another big race and got another big chance.
Solid bet. I think we've mentioned all the main ones there for the Ryanair, so we'll go more to the Gold Cup, Danny. Obviously, Galloping de Champs has been a real, top quality horse, a proper Gold Cup horse. He's found this season a little bit trickier. A few improvers have come through and beaten him. How does he go into this festival? He's obviously, he's not without a chance, but it looks a lot more difficult on paper than it has done the last few years.
Yeah, it's a very competitive race, and Gallopin is now 10 years old, but you're wondering what can change from last year, and I think he didn't get the start off this year in the John Durkan, got his opening race in Leopardstown, which probably ended up being a bit of a tougher race, being over 3 miles against horses that had already had a run, and that might have blunted him a little bit for his second run at the DRF, but didn't have quite as hard a race at the DRF and can freshen up a little bit more to come here with a bit of zest in him again. The younger ones with potential coming through, there's probably the likes of Factor File, who has learned to settle now. Looks to be maybe one that'll have his measure, but I wouldn't rule out Galloping de Champs. I think he's still a genuine top 3 chance in the race, and I'd probably have him ahead of some of the ones that were in the mix in the fight out of the King George. So, it's difficult to look through them, and looking at what is going to win the race, I think Factor File's performance in Leopardstown, where he settled on the pace and picked up and ran out a good winner. We were all watching the race looking, will he quicken at the back of the last, and he did quite impressively in Leopardstown, and that was something we hadn't seen him do before.
And Willie's always loved Factor File, hasn't he? So this will be the icing on the cake. This is what he's been made to do, hasn't he, basically?
That's it. Last year I'd say the whole season was gearing towards making him a Gold Cup horse, and he just didn't want to settle and relax to do it, where this year, a good performance in the John Durkan, probably how he settled might have cost him a chance of being in contention in the King George, and then that's reaped the reward to win an Irish Gold Cup. So I think with all that said, I'd be very surprised if he's not supplemented for the race, and I think he's a likely winner if he is.
Excellent. So the Gold Cup winner and the Ryanair winner going the way of Willie Mullins. James, you might see it a little bit differently. I know you still like the King George form and maybe have a pick from there.
Yeah, I thought it was a great race. Obviously, I was for Bartlett out to the finish. And I thought the Jukebox Man, he was a winning dark horse selection that day. And he's my selection in the Gold Cup. He's been in great form. He was really impressive at Haydock when he brushed the Arkle side. And then the King George, he was outstanding. He jumped well, he travelled well, and he dug deep when he had to battle. He's proven at Cheltenham, second in the Albert Bartlett. He was really unlucky not to win that day. And he's got proven course form. I think he's a class horse, and I think he should run a big race.
Any concerns over him with going that little bit further in the Gold Cup compared to the King George?
No, not really. No, he ran in the Albert or the Albert Bartlett. It was 3 miles in it, but and it's a little bit further in here, but no, I think no problem at all. I think he'll be thereabouts again.
And what about the both of you can answer this? Hattie Claus, that's gone from being a handicapper, won the Irish Grand National and stuff last year, and won the Welsh Grand National this year. Is he good enough to really get in the mix here? Do you think, Danny, or is he? I don't know. Is he still a top quality handicapper rather than a Grade 1 performer?
On what I've seen, I'd say no. Rebecca Curtis has a lot of faith in the horse and she's looking at him every day. Can handicappers step up and do it? Native River did. So I don't see it happening, but there is a lot of confidence from the stable and you'd have to take that on board. Sean Bowen really loves this horse as well, and you know he's having a fantastic season. For him to get his first Cheltenham winner in a Gold Cup would be something unbelievable, but for me I don't think he's going to be able to beat the likes of Factifile, Gallopin. You know, there's a few there that I think Haiti Calours needs to step up and prove it, but you know, I'd wish him all the best in proving me wrong.
Thanks for watching Danny's Diary, our Cheltenham Festival edition. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Tote's YouTube channel. We've got Danny coming live to you every day throughout the festival with Danny's Diary. We're just going to throw in some handicap picks and some of the other races we didn't mention in the main previews. Danny, you've obviously got Letos for your dad and Blaze the Way for your mum who are going there. That's going to be it'll be a memorable week if them two go in for you.
It would be, you know, they both seem in great nick at home. Blaze the Way, he'll probably run the Handicap Chase the first day. His course form from December gives him a big chance going back to the festival. Hopefully we get a little bit of a dry time between now and then. And yeah, Blaze the Way would have his chance. Letos was very good back in the Brown Lad Hurdle in Naas earlier in the year and qualified nicely in Carlisle. For the Pertemps, I think, you know, he was well below himself in the Grade 1 the last day, but that experience going around there in that will definitely stand to him, and he's had a good bit of time to regroup and go at the Pertemps hurdle again. So yeah, the mother and father both supplying good chances for me this year.
Yeah, make sure you check out our Tote YouTube channel for some stable tours with Tony and Mags Mullin about both of them horses. James, you had some other shouts in some of the handicaps, and the bumper, I think you had a nice shout in that Danny's just confirmed will go there.
Yeah. Willie Mullins obviously got a great record in the bumper, and I think he's got another good chance with Trigger in it this year. He's a brother to Gaelic Warrior. He was really impressive when he won, and again I think he's got to have a big chance. It'll be interesting to see who rides him, but Patrick rode him last time, whether he rides him again, but yeah, he looks really smart.
Any idea on who will ride him, Danny? Will he be a...
I don't know. I think being a 4-year-old, he might be out of weight range for Patrick in the bumper. So, you know, I definitely, if he does line up and go there, I think it's been the plan anyway since Goran that he's likely to run. So if he does line up, I'd be putting my name in the hat. He'd be a great spin in the bumper. But, you know, Willie, I'm sure has the favourite there as well that Patrick is probably likely to ride was one... there was a horse that won in Naas and the name escapes me, the other one that won quite well for Rich as well recently, so there's plenty in it, and you know it'll be as competitive as ever in the bumper.
Hopefully we can get a word off Rich Ritchie. We're sponsoring the Suns preview night in a few days as well, which you can get live, and James, you had a good line from Rich Ritchie there last year when you went down.
Yeah, the last mile for one. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, he basically confirmed he was going to the mares and not the champion hurdle. So yeah, hopefully we can get something like that again this year. So
stay tuned for that. James, handicap picks. You plotted a few out hopefully, and we'll get Danny's verdict on them as well. Go for it.
In the Fred Winter, I thought a Quinta del Lago could have a chance. Jess Harrington to us. It ran well. It's got some good form lines with running behind now. I see her Haas. proactive and macho man and stuff. So it's got good form, and I think he was about 25 to 1 when I looked. So if he's around about that price, it looks a good decent each way bet. I think Jordan's Cross. I think he'd have a good chance as well. He won a race at Cheltenham, which has thrown up plenty of good winners down the years, and it was a good performance to win. He beat Quebecois, and I think if he runs, he'd have a big chance as well.
You seem quite keen on him. I heard you talking about him this morning when we were driving here about Jordan's Cross.
Yeah. The race he won at Cheltenham is again, it's thrown up some really nice winners down the years, and I think it's a good guide, and he looks a good horse. And Anthony Honeyball's had a great season, and he'd have a good chance.
I think one that we picked out recently in one of Danny's diaries in Gorn, the Red Mills hurdle, work ahead for Henry de Bromhead. If he lines up either the Coral Cup or the County Hurdle, I think he'd have a big chance. You know, Stormheart was the winner that day, probably rated a few pounds higher than would be going there with a chance too. But work ahead for de Bromhead could be one that's laid out for this.
He was second in the end, wasn't he, in that race? He ran quite well for a long time, then Stormhead came over the top, was it?
That was it, you know, maybe needed to jump a little bit faster than what I'd seen in Gorn, but, you know, was ridden to go out there, do that and learn from it. I think if he can find the natural improvement from Gorn, what I seen in Gorn, I'd say Coral Cup probably the race for him, but, you know, the County Hurdle is a strongly run race as well, and I think Work Ahead is a good each way contender.
Out of them races we've covered, Danny, who's your best bet there of the entire meeting, if you want to give us one out in another race?
Championship races, best bet, Gaelic Warrior in the Ryanair, Novices, Bambino Fever in the Mayor's Novice.
Lovely double. We'll see if our traders can do something about boosting that for us. James, same from you. Maybe a double, or equally just give us one.
In the championship race, I think the Jukebox Man will go from the Gold Cup. I think the Devil, and the Albert Bartlett would have a good chance.
Lovely, two great shouts there. So thanks for joining us for Danny's Diary, the Cheltenham Festival edition. Don't forget about our offers as well. We're money back second, third and fourth in the Supreme, and money back second every race after that. And we've got our estimated £1 million play spots every day as well. Thanks for joining us, lads, and good luck, Danny, at the festival.
Thank you very much.